Buksan po natin ang ating mga Biblia sa dalawang bahagi ng New Testament. Ang una po ay from Titus chapter 1 verses 5 and 6. And then babasahin nating sunod ang 1 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 2. So unahin nating tingnan ang Titus chapter 1 verses 5 and 6. This is why I left you in Crete, so that you might put what remained into order and appoint elders in every town as I directed you. If anyone is above reproach. Hanggang dun lamang po, babasahin natin sa verse 6. Now, please jump to 1 Timothy chapter 3. Siguro buuin na natin, simulan natin din sa verse 1 and then verse 2. 1 Timothy chapter 3 verses 1 and 2. The saying is trustworthy. If anyone aspires to the office of overseer, he desires a noble task. Therefore, an overseer must be above reproach. So gusto kong pansinin ninyo yung nakalagay doon sa verse 6 ng Titus, sa chapter 1, at yung nakalagay sa verse 2 ng 1 Timothy chapter 3. Kung mapapansin ninyo, na ito ang una sa mga qualifications na binigay rito, that the overseer or the elder must be above reproach. At yan din rin po ang title sa ating pag-aaral ngayong umaga. The elder must be above reproach. Merong dalawang maliwanag na listahan na nakalagay sa New Testament patungkol sa mga kwalifikasyon ng mga elders sa iglesia. Ang unang listahan ay makikita natin sa 1 Timothy chapter 3 verses 1 to 7 at ang ikalawa ay nasa Titus chapter 1 verses 5 up to 9. At tayo nga ngayon ay tumututok dito sa Titus chapter 1 verses 5 to 9, pero dahil merong similarity, itong unang qualification para sa mga elders na makikita natin sa Titus at saka sa 1 Timothy, itong dahilan kung bakit tinitingnan natin itong dalawang passages ngayong umaga. Bago po tayo pumunta sa mga detalye ng mga qualifications na nakalagay dito sa Titus chapter 1 verses 5 to 9, tingnan muna natin ang ilang mga leksyon na matututunan natin mula sa listahang ito ayon kay Alexander Strauch mula sa kanyang librong Biblical Eldership. Kung mapapansin nyo, dito sa series natin, madalas ko siyang mababanggit dahil siguro talagang ito ang napakalaking pagpapala na naidulot ng librong ito sa Christian community. Dahil maraming mga Bible teachers na nagre-recognize na itong si Alexander Strauch has really been instrumental upang maibalik ang tamang pagtuturo patungkol sa eldership sa mga iglesia. At sa lahat yung mga nagtuturo patungkol sa biblical eldership, itong isang libro na hindi nila pwedeng isatabi o kaligtaan, dapat sinasama nila lagi itong librong ito sa anumang pagtuturo pertaining sa eldership kasi nagawa niya na lahat ng mga relevant and important passages from the Bible, both Old and New, na merong koneksyon sa issue ng eldership ay na-address niya at naipaliwanag niya ng mabuti. Kaya itong kadahilanan kung bakit madalas ko siyang binabasa o kinuquote sa ating lahat. Pakinggan nyo yung sinabi dito ni Alexander Strauch in connection dito sa qualifications na nakalagay sa Titus chapter 1 verses 5 up to 9. Sabi niya, on the matter of qualification for eldership, the New Testament is emphatic. Only spiritually and morally qualified men can be elders. On this point, there is no debate. Not just anyone who wants to be an elder can become one. Only those men who meet God's qualifications can become part of the pastoral leadership of the congregation. Proper qualification is a scriptural imperative, objective requirement, moral obligation, indispensable standard, and absolute necessity for those who would serve as leaders of the church. Kailangan maintindihan natin ito, no? Hindi natin pwedeng i-compromise, hindi natin pwedeng isatabi itong mga qualifications sa ito kung ang ating pinag-uusapan ay elder ng iglesia o pastor ng iglesia. ingatan natin ang ating sarili na tayo ay magpadala sa pressure ng mga tao. Siguro, isang madalas na sinasabi, ang tagal-tagal na nating naka-exist bilang isang iglesia, bakit hanggang ngayon wala pa tayong elder? Mag-appoint na tayo ng elder, kahit sino na lang, basta maayos siya at nakita nating okay siya, lagay na natin, tagal-tagal na nating walang elder. Itong church na to, 1 taon pa lang may elder na. Ito sila, 3 taon pa lang may elder na tayo. Ang tagal-tagal na wala pang elder. You see, there's that tendency and temptation to be pressured by culture, to be pressured by other churches, to be pressured by people, because they don't understand kung ano sinasabi ng salita ng Diyos. And so it's so important that we remind ourselves na ito ay, ang ganda-ganda na sinabi niya rito, proper qualification is a scriptural imperative. Ito ay iniuutos ng salita ng Panginoon. It is an objective requirement. Hindi ito nadadala ng pakiramdam. Sa palagay ko, tinawag ako ng Panginoon. Sa palagay ko, ako, elder ako. No, there are objective standards. This is an objective requirement. This is a moral obligation and an indispensable standard. Di mo pwedeng isatabi ito standard na ito. Di mo pwedeng sabihin na, tayo na lang ang mag-imbento ng sarili nating standard. You cannot do that. Kailangang sundin natin kung ano sinasabi ng salita ng Panginoon. Now, there are two extremes in connection with this. In spite, sabi ni Alexander Strauch, in spite of the clear statements in Scripture regarding the elders' qualifications, people often take one of two extreme positions regarding the qualification of elders. The first is, yung unang extreme, to ignore the full range of scriptural qualifications, thus permitting unqualified men to fill a crucial position of leadership. Sabi nga ng isa, si Bruce Stabbert, too often, men of money and secular influence or of good looks and influence are elected to church boards with little regard for their spiritual qualities. So dahil ang isa ay magaling na leader sa society, siya ay mayaman, siya ay magaling magsalita, siya ay gwapo, ayan, ilagay natin yan para maging elder. Ultimately, this practice weakens and lowers the congregation's spiritual life. So yun yung isang extreme. Hindi natin sinusunod o may mga qualifications na nakalagay sa 1 Timothy 3 or Titus 1 na tinatabi na lang natin para i-accommodate yung mga gusto nating piliin. Mali yun. Pangalawa, the other extreme, sabi ni Alexander Strauch, is to add qualifications or restrictions that God doesn't demand, thus excluding needed and qualified men from church leadership. Ito naman yung isang extreme. Dinadagdagan natin o ginagawa nating importanteng requirement yung isang bagay na hindi naman nakalista doon. Yan naman ang kabilang extreme. Sabi ni Roland Allen, ito ang kanya sinabi, and I quote, Roland Allen says, "We are so enamored of those qualifications which we have added to the apostolic that we deny the qualifications of anyone who possess only the apostolic, whilst we think a man fully qualified who possesses only ours." So inasabi niya rito na masyado tayong naiinganyo o nabibilib dun sa mga qualifications natin na dinagdag natin dun sa nakalagay sa Titus chapter 1 or sa 1 Timothy chapter 3. Halimbawa, nagbigay siyang example. A young student fresh from a theological college lacks many of those qualifications which the apostle deemed necessary for a leader in the house of God: the age, the experience, the established position and reputation, even if he possesses all the others. Him we do not think unqualified. The man who possesses all the apostolic qualifications is said the unqualified because he cannot go back to school and pass an examination. In other words, ang kanya sinasabi rito ay, masyado tayong bilib dun sa standard na ginawa natin. Isa sa mga standard halimbawa na ginawa natin kailangan matalino tong taong ito. Kailangan talagang mataas yung kanyang degree na naabot in Bible school. Dapat may masteral ito. Dapat ito ay may PhD at may THD ito. So, masyado nating hinahanap yung mga bagay na sabihin natin, hindi natin gagawing pastor hanggat walang ganyang qualification. Hindi natin gagawing elder sa ating church hanggat hindi niya naaabot itong level na to. Hindi natin siya tatawaging reverend pagka wala siyang PhD, pag wala siyang masteral, pag wala siyang ganitong mga bagay na ito. Yun yung sinasabi rito na masyado tayong nabibilib sa standard na ginawa natin, na hindi tayo kontento na ang isang tao nagka-qualify based lang doon sa nakalagay sa 1 Timothy 3 at saka sa Titus chapter 1. Nandun na sa kanya lahat yun. Pero sabi na, mag-exam ka nga. Tingnan nga natin kung alam mo itong Greek, kung alam mo itong Hebrew. Pag hindi niya nakuha perfectly yung exam, sabi natin, sorry, hindi ka pwedeng maging elder at maging pastor ng aming iglesia. Kasi hindi mo napasa itong mga exam na ito. Ang emphasis natin ngayon ay nailalagay sa talino. Hindi nalalagay dun sa character at yung sa spiritual gift of teaching. Ngayon, ang emphasis natin ay meron siyang managerial abilities. Pwede siyang maging CEO ng isang organization na tulad sa atin. Pagka nandyan sa kanya yung qualifications na parang isang magaling na manager, yan ang gawin nating elder. Pero pagka wala siya nitong ganitong mga skills na ito, kahit na nasa kanya itong character na ito, kahit na maayos pa siyang magturo, wag natin yung gawing elder sa ating iglesia. You see, ito yung sinasabi na dalawang extreme na dapat nating ingatan sa ating iglesia. Such practices only serve, sabi ni Alexander Strauch, to hold a congregation back from reaching its full potential. The only solution is to demand nothing less or more. Huwag natin bawasan, huwag din nating dagdagan yung nakalagay na qualification sa Biblia than God's standards for elders and deacons. A solution Francis Schaeffer implored Christians to follow. Sabi ni Francis Schaeffer ay ganito, the church has no right to diminish these standards for the officers of the church, nor does it have any right to elevate any other as though they are then equal to these which are commanded by God Himself. These and only these stand as absolute. So kung ano lang yung nakalagay sa Biblia, yun lang ang gawin nating qualification. Huwag nating bawasan, huwag nating dagdagan. Or else, ito ay makaka-apekto sa atin bilang isang iglesia. So ano ang conclusion ni Alexander Strauch? Sabi niya, what God prizes among the leaders of His people is not education, wealth, social status, success, or even great spiritual gifts. Rather, He values personal moral and spiritual character, requiring that those who lead His people be just, devout, self-controlled, peaceable, and forbearing with others. They must also be loyal husbands, good fathers, and men who are firmly committed to His word. In other words, God requires the overseers of His people to be spiritually mature men. Yun ang qualification. Pakinggan ninyo, etong sinabi ni John MacArthur, he fully agrees dito sa sinabi ni Alexander Strauch. And ito sabi ni MacArthur in connection with Titus 1. Sabi niya, God does not call all elders to be entrepreneurs, men who begin ministries and build them. Nor does He call all elders to be producers, men who accomplish a great amount of work in the church, although these are worthy things. Neither does He call all of them to be managers, adept at mobilizing others in the Lord's service, although that too is a worthy thing. The Lord does, however, call all elders to be godly leaders, men who, by their exemplary lives, as well as by their sound teaching and preaching, set a pattern of virtue and devotion to the Lord for other believers to follow. Mistakenly, many church leaders view their roles as that of promoter, businessman, executive, psychologist, entertainer, or president. But these roles contrast sharply with those specified in the New Testament. A pastor or elder is not qualified on the basis of intelligence, education, influence, or human talent. He is qualified on the basis of his moral and spiritual character and his ability to impart the word, and on those alone. A minority of God's choice servants throughout history have been highly intelligent. Meron din namang mga matatalino, well-educated, and greatly talented. Qualities the Lord has chosen to use and bless. But those are not the foundational qualities that the Lord requires. The foundational and indispensable qualities He requires of highly skilled and eminent pastors are the same as those He requires of the simplest, uneducated pastor who ministers in the primitive backwoods of a rural region or in a developing third world country. Regardless of where and how they minister, they are to be morally and spiritually pure. Only such men are worthy to be leaders in Christ's church. Napaka-importante. What an encouragement para dun sa mga tao na kanilang feeling, for example, na nakikita natin sa ating kalagitnaan, may ginagawa ang Panginoon Diyos sa kanilang buhay, nakikita natin maayos yung kanilang character, pero kunyari, hindi maayos masyado yung kanilang grammar pag nagsasalita sila. Hindi maayos yung pronunciation pag nagsasalita sila. Pero pag marunong sila magturo, maiintindihan mo naman. Kaya lang yung mga critics, yung mga masyadong stricto pagdating sa subject and verb agreement, for example, sabihin, ano ba naman yung pastor na yan? Plural yung, yung subject, tapos yung kanyang verb na ginamit, ganito, singular lang. Dapat, wag gawing pastor yan. Naalala ko, merong isang pastor kami na from CCM na nagpunta na Amerika. Pagpunta niya Amerika, sabi niya, Brad, hirap na hirap ako magpastor dito. Bakit? Tuwing magtuturo ako, walang ginagawa yung congregation namin, kundi tamain yung English ko. Habang nagtuturo siya, parang binibilang nila yung maling grammar ng pastor. Of course, okay naman yung pagka-desire mo talagang tulungan. Pero minsan, wala na silang hinahanap, kundi tama ba yung pronunciation nito, tama ba yung grammar niya. And they neglect lahat ng mga qualifications na nakalista sa Titus or sa 1 Timothy. So, wag ganon. And so, this will be an encouragement para sa mga tao ang feeling nila hindi sila ganun ka-bright. Ang feeling nila ay hindi sila ganun kagaling magsalita. Ang feeling nila na hindi ganun kataas ang stature nila in society, but if they have these moral characteristics na nakalagay sa 1 Timothy or sa Titus, maaring sila ay pwedeng gamitin ng Panginoon Diyos as leaders and elders of the church. Ano ba sinasabi ni Apostle Paul dito sa Titus? What is the directive of Paul to Titus? As I mentioned before, itong letter na ito na pinag-aaralan natin, itong Titus na ito, was written by Paul to a younger apostolic representative named Titus. It was written about the same time that Paul wrote his first letter to Timothy. These two young apostolic representatives, Timothy and Titus, were assigned the task of organizing and supervising churches in different locations. Si Timothy, inassign na ni Paul sa city of Ephesus. Si Titus naman, inassign ni Paul sa island of Crete. Paul and Titus had been together ministering in Crete, but soon, Paul left Titus behind. Shortly after Paul's departure, he wrote to Titus and repeated his instructions. May instruction na siya noon pa bago siya umalis. Pero pag alis niya, sinulat niya ng mabuti kung ano uli yung instructions niya kay Titus. In Titus, we read the reason why Paul left Titus. Sabi niya doon, "This is why I left you in Crete, so that you might put what remained into order." So yan ang unang general na dahilan kung bakit iniwan ni Pablo si Titus. Paul, with Titus, had already evangelized the people of Crete and produced disciples. But notice that for Paul, getting people saved and making disciples of them was not enough. He still considered that there was still some incomplete task that needed to be finished. So, ito magandang paalala sa mga evangelists, sa mga para-church workers, yung mga involved sa campus ay halimbawa, minsan contented na yung mga para-church workers na ma-share nilang mga tao, tumanggap sa Panginoon, natulungan nila to go through some training and they have produced disciples. Pero hindi sila nadala o na-endorse sa isang iglesia. Hindi sila na-form into a group wherein there are leaders, there are elders in that church. Dapat hindi maging contented itong mga workers na ito na feeling nila, oh, tapos na yung aking trabaho, okay na yung nagawa ko. No, they should always look at that objective. Remember, ang approach ni Paul, when you look at the New Testament, pagdating sa ministry, he begins by sharing the gospel to unbelievers. Those who are saved, he builds them up, he deepens them in the faith, he equips them, and then he assimilates them or brings them together to form a congregation. He organizes them, and then he appoints elders over them. At hanggat hindi umaabot dun sa may elder o may pastor dun sa iglesia ngayon, kulang pa yung kanyang trabaho. Kaya yung mga missionaries na yun ang inyong isipan na, uy, pupunta ako dun sa lugar na yun, mag-share ako dun sa kanila ng ebanghelyo, please do not see yourself as having done a complete work without following itong pattern na ginawa ni Paul. Dapat ang desire mo, Lord, sana mabuo itong mga taong itong nadala ko sa Panginoon, lumalim sila, ma-equip sila, mag-form sila into a church, mag-organize sila, and then magkaroon sila ng mga elders, and then continue to make disciples of others. Okay, so yun ang approach na ginawa nila Pablo dito. And so, tingnan ninyo, ano yung mga bagay na hindi pa raw tapos generally? Well, some of the general things that remained unfinished were false teachers, for example, needed to be silenced. Another is different age groups were to be taught what was in accord with sound doctrine. May kita nyo sa Titus chapter 2, particularly verses 1 up to 10. And Titus 3, verses 1 and 2. He was to emphasize, another thing, that the doctrine of grace should lead to holiness. Titus chapter 2, verses 11 up to 15. He was to warn divisive persons. Titus chapter 3, verse 10. And the people were to be taught to live productive lives. Titus chapter 3 and verse 14. Pero dagdag dito sa general na mga responsibilities na ito na dapat ayusin ni Titus, Paul specifically mentions that he had to appoint elders in every town. This is specifically what was left unfinished. From this passage, it looks like a church is not yet fully established until elders are established in such a church. So, hindi pa fully established ang isang iglesia kung wala pa siyang mga elders. The disciples must be organized into a local church, and elders should be established if the work is to be finished. A church must have elders if it is to be properly structured and strengthened. Regardless of the historical situation, elders should be appointed in every town. So in every town means in every local church of every town. Walang exception. Hindi sinabi ditong isa lang ang pastor at walang mga elder. O di kaya isa lang pastor and then the rest are deacons. Sinabi dito, elders, plural. Titus was to make his appointments according to Paul's directive. Kailangan sundin niya yung instruction ni Paul. Sabi niya, appoint elders in every town as I directed you. And please take note na yung pronoun dito na I, nung sinabi ni Paul, as I directed you, the I is emphatic in the original language, showing that Paul was making an authoritative apostolic charge or directive. Sabi niya, sundin mo itong directive na binigay ko. Yung binigay ko sa'yo. Hindi yung sarili mong palagay, hindi yung ikaw ang mag-set up ng sarili mong standard, hindi yung narinig mo sa ibang tao, hindi yung nakita mo sa ibang iglesia na kung sino man na nagtayo noon. Sabi ni Paul, ako, yung binigay ko sa yung direksyon noon, yun ang sundin mo, yun ang standard na gagawin mo. Titus, wala nang iba. So, this is the emphatic pronoun, no? As I directed you. So, wala nang ibang pwedeng gawin si Titus kundi sundin etong charge na binigay ni Paul sa kanya. Dahil ito ay standard ng Panginoon, hindi ito standard lang ni Paul. Nung sinulat niya ito at nung binigay niya yung instruction na yon, siya ay puno ng banal na spirito at ginabayan ng banal na spirito, and so he needed to obey kung ano yung standard na bigay ni Paul. Now, what was Paul's directive? Not just anyone can be an elder, nor can anyone set up his own standard for appointment to eldership. Elders must be appointed according to the directive of God's Spirit given to us in Titus chapter 1 verses 6 up to 9, and 1 Timothy chapter 3 verses 1 up to 7. Ito ang standard ng Panginoon at walang sinumang tao o organisasyon na may karapatan na baguhin itong standard na ito.